Welcome back, everybody. Well, we got a porch poured around this thing. I guess I'm not too good of a YouTuber because I wasn't here filming it while they were doing it, but I had something going on at work and I needed to be there more than I did here, in which they didn't need my help anyway, but they did me a good job. I'm pleased with the way it turned out. Now, if you've not been here before, I did form the concrete, but I leave the pouring up to those guys. But I ended up going with just a light broom finish here. We'll come back and end up sealing all of this. And if you've ever been on concrete that's finished slick, and then you put that sealer on it, as soon as it gets water on it, it's like walking on an ice skating rink. So I left it with a light broom finish, and then we did this cobblestone 17-inch border right here on the edge. But you'll notice there's not any color on this, but we'll come back probably here in 2 or 3 weeks and we'll put some color on this and stain these stone, and then we'll seal all the porch all the way back to the house. The reason we didn't go ahead and add the color to it yesterday, I'm going to leave this a natural concrete color, so we didn't want to take a chance on getting that color out onto the porch and then it, you know, not having a good clean edge down through here. So we'll come back, add some color to the stone, and put a sealer coat over every bit of it. Now, one thing I did with my forms is I had about a 2-foot piece of plastic that it comes out to about right here, but it just comes over up the forms and over. But all this material that I formed it with, when I take it off, that plastic is sort of just a protective barrier, so all that lumber, I won't have that concrete all stuck to it, and we'll be able to reuse that for something else. I was talking with concrete and aggravating them there yesterday, and he said, "You cheapskate, here you are putting this plastic over your forms, and we got to try to edge that down through there." But we had it laid in there pretty neat, so it worked out to where they could edge it. And let's go around through here and unscrew some screws and see if they'll pop off of here with some sense, and we'll see what kind of form job I did do when we look down the line. Well, them forms come off of there like they had some sense. Edge turned out pretty good. Those stamps leave just a little of that cream over here on the edge. I'll probably take one of those concrete stakes and run down through there and just sort of run over that and knock that crust off. But I'm not going to be leaving this edge exposed. That'll get backfilled up against, so I wasn't concerned about what kind of texture I had out here. Well, my plastic was a little wrinkled right here in this section. You can see where the plastic was, but like I say, that'll all get covered up. And it's probably a little bit of extra work to get the plastic wrapped up over the forms, but I'll tell you, taking those things down is a dream when you've got it over it, and there's not a speck of concrete on them anywhere. All right, I've got 2 more sides to take off, and we'll move on to something else. Well, it's time to button this thing up and put some windows in. I ended up going with Anderson windows, and I went with their composite frame. Now, you can get numerous options when it comes to windows, but the one thing that in my research which I've found this in the past, a lot of times the actual glass in the window itself won't differ from model to model. It's more so on the frame and the design and the style of it that's where you get the differentiation. But they're put together maybe a little bit better on as you spend more money. But these are they have the low E glaze, and then they've got the argon inside them. But I don't have that many windows in this house, and all except one window will be under a covered porch. And so if I was in a place to where I was getting a lot of direct sunlight, and I would have probably stepped on up and probably went to an aluminum exterior. But in my case, they're all going to be, for the most part, underneath the covered porch. I think I've got sufficient glass here that'll be somewhat efficient, and so that's the reason I went with what I went with. Let's see if we can get them put in. Now, obviously not all openings are perfectly level and plumb. They're pretty close, but what I'll typically do is stick it in here and try to get it centered up in my hole. I'll go ahead and plumb it up, and then I'll just get a reference mark down the side of the window. That way when I stick it back in there, I can line it back up with my mark. Then I can shoot my silicone on it and we'll get it attached. But stick it in here and see if we can get it plumbed up. Now, it'd be nice if I had somebody on the inside to tell me I'm centered up, but with the way these frames are built, they're a little thicker, so when I put my trim in, if I'm off a quarter one way or the other, I can shim my casing out to make it go in there and fit, and you'll never know the difference. But stick it in here and see if we can get us aligned. Now, the way I've prepped all my openings is down here in the bottom, is I've got the zip tape basically in the bottom of the opening. Well, if any moisture was to get in here, it'd probably come to the bottom and it'd have this and wouldn't get into my wood. But like I said earlier, I'll have a roof out over all this. So I'm going to come in, we'll shoot a bead of silicone all the way around it. We'll get it attached, and then we'll come back with the zip tape on the exterior and seal it off to the house. Let's squirt a little silicone on here and we'll stick it in the hole. Now I'm using a little pancake head screw, and this is actually what was used to screw that standing seam roof down. But if you look at the thickness of that head, it ain't much thicker than what a roofing nail would be. But I'm screwing it off versus nailing it. Now if you watch the internet and you watch guys put windows in, they actually will not silicone the bottom, they won't fasten the bottom. And they want to try to leave a gap down here to where if any water gets trapped underneath this window, it's got a way to drain out versus staying trapped in underneath the window. But in my case, like I said before, I'll have a porch come across the top of this, so I shouldn't get a lot of water hitting this. So I want to seal it up as tight as I can. So with not much moisture, not much exposure, I've went ahead and siliconed this. I've secured it with screws, and then we'll tape it off and seal it up. Let's hope we guess right. I think we can live with that. Now these windows down here on the main level, they're no problem to put in, but the one I'm sort of dreading is the one that's sitting up there in the gable. But that's a 5x5, it's just a fixed window. It's not functional from a use standpoint. It's basically for looks. But I had a JLG lift here just a week and a half ago that they used to put the roof on, and I was hoping my windows would come in before that thing left. It would have made getting up there a whole lot easier. We'll have to get creative and figure a way to get it in there, but let's knock the rest of these out and we'll move on to something else. I believe I'll wait for a little bit of help on that one. off of that edge. You know how we operate on these windows. Oh, yeah. They'll knock the bottom windows out. Yeah, we don't want to bend it. Yeah. Alright, guys. Okay. Woo, baby. You overlap good? I'm good. I'm good. Alright. Well, we got a little bit accomplished this week. I'm glad to get these windows in. And I'm especially glad to have that one in up there. I was dreading putting it in, but my brother come up and helped me. While we was putting that up, we was talking about the first house that I built. I had 2 windows in the front, and they had half moons on top. So they were pretty big windows. So my dad and brother come up to help me, and I built some temporary scaffold underneath the bottom of them. And I didn't put enough screws in it. And so when we got up on it, the scaffold come down, and all 3 of us come down along with the window and hit the ground. Luckily, nobody got hurt, but we was sort of reliving that when we sticking these windows in here. So we had that in the back of our mind, try to keep from hitting the ground. But glad I got those in. Glad I got this concrete down. We hopefully will have my metal framework for my porch. They're supposed to get that to me here in the next couple weeks. And then I've got some wood that'll make my rafters and my tongue and groove go in the ceiling. That's supposed to come here on Monday. So I'm gonna go ahead and try to get a jump on staining that before we put it up. So we got a long way to go, but I've been working inside just on some of this boring stuff that nobody wants to watch. But anyway, we'll get there one of these days. But if you watch this one, I appreciate it. And we got plenty more to go. But until the next time, we'll see you later.